Have you ever felt there's something greater behind life? Something science can't explain but your heart recognizes as truth? In 1944, Carl Jung, the genius who unveiled the mind's archetypes, died for a few minutes, and what he brought back haunts even the most skeptical minds. This letter was erased from official records. Universities don't mention it. Scholars whisper about it behind closed doors. Why? Because Jung described a reality so profound it challenges everything we think we know about life, death, and who we really are. Imagine, he saw Earth from space, decades before NASA existed. He felt the soul as something tangible, not metaphorical. And he discovered that death isn't an end, but a threshold. Why did he keep it a secret? The answer goes beyond fear. He knew the world wasn't ready. But are you? Because this isn't just Jung's story. It's a mirror. What would you do if you discovered your existence is infinitely greater than it seems? The letter begins here, and after it, nothing will ever be the same. Will you follow? When the heart stopped and the soul awakened. The winter of 1944 froze more than the fields of Switzerland. It froze time for Carl Jung. Lying in a hospital bed, his heart failed, stopped, and then silence. Not the empty darkness many fear, but a pulsing void, as if the universe held its breath. In the minutes that followed, something extraordinary happened. His consciousness didn't vanish. It expanded. He floated above his own body, seeing Earth as a blue jewel suspended in the void. An impossible vision for the time, with no satellites or space photos. But Jung didn't doubt. That was his home, seen through the eyes of the soul. Pain, fear, and time ceased to exist. In their place, a sense of belonging so intense it defied words. It was as if, for the first time, he remembered where he came from. Not a memory of the mind, but of the essence. Something ancient, sacred, beyond the life he had known. Then came the revelation. Death was not an end, but a portal. And he, a scholar of the human psyche, faced the ultimate paradox. The science he had spent his life building couldn't explain what his eyes knew to be real. When the doctors brought him back, Jung returned with the secret burning in his chest. Something so vast that, if shared at the time, would have been ridiculed. But he wrote it all down. And now, these words reach you. What would you do if you discovered that death is only the beginning? The place where light doesn't shine. It is. Between life and what comes after, Jung found something that defies all logic. A temple not built of stone, but of pure consciousness. The walls didn't reflect light. They were light, as if each particle vibrated with intelligence. In that space, he understood. Everything we call reality is just a distorted echo of this primordial truth. There, in the silence that speaks louder than words, he recognized himself for the first time. Not as Carl Jung, the psychiatrist, but as something infinitely greater, a conscious fragment of the universe itself. The experience was as visceral as drinking water when dying of thirst. He didn't believe it. He knew it. A being approached, not with a human or divine form, but as the embodiment of pure understanding. Communication didn't come in words, but in complete packets of meaning that unfolded in his mind. The message was clear. Our earthly existence is not the final goal, but a learning field for something much greater. In that moment, all of Jung's doubts dissolved. Ancient myths, near-death experiences, esoteric traditions, all converged on the same truth. He stood before the source that inspired all of humanity's spiritual quests. When he returned, he brought with him a certainty that would forever transform his work. There exists a plane of existence where what we call death is merely the doorway in, and that door is open to all, though few dare to cross it consciously. The truth he found was not new. It had only been asleep within each of us. The silence that spoke louder. Jung faced a dilemma few can grasp: how to share a truth that burned in his soul when the world was still asleep? He, who had devoted his life to the scientific study of the mind, now carried a certainty that the science of his time would never accept. The price of revelation would be too high: scornful laughter, the discredit of colleagues, perhaps even the end of his legacy. But the true reason for his silence ran deeper. He realized that spiritual truths cannot be imposed. They must be discovered. How can one explain the taste of a fruit never eaten? How to describe colors to someone born blind? His experience transcended words, belonging to the realm of the lived, not the explained. Over the years, Jung found traces of this truth hidden in unexpected places, in the dreams of his patients, in ancient myths, in alchemical symbols. Each culture, in its own way, had tried to express the inexpressible. He began to understand. This wisdom was never lost, only forgotten, waiting for the right moment to be reborn. The secret letter was his commitment to the future. Jung knew a time would come when humanity would be ready to listen. He didn't break the silence, but planted a seed, watered with patience and guarded by mystery, that would only sprout when the soil of collective consciousness was fertile. Today, as we read these words, we bear witness that he was right. The time he foresaw has come. The question that remains is, are we truly prepared for what he discovered, or will we keep pretending that some truths are too vast to fit within our world? The tearing veil. The future. Jung foretold. On the threshold between worlds, Jung received a vision both disturbing and hopeful. He saw our current era, a time when the veil between dimensions would begin to thin like worn silk, not as a metaphor, but as a tangible reality. Humanity would face a critical moment, to awaken or to go mad in the face of what had always been hidden. He described a fascinating paradox. On one hand, the light of truth would shine more intensely, allowing many to see beyond daily illusions. On the other, that same brightness would reveal shadows we prefer to ignore. It would be like suddenly waking from a deep dream. Some would open their eyes to a greater reality, while others would struggle to fall back asleep. The most intriguing part? Jung predicted that death would become transparent. Not in the physical sense, but as an intimate understanding that the end is merely a passage. Yet, with this knowledge would come an unexpected challenge. In a world where nothing is hidden, where even the last secret is revealed, what will give our journey meaning? His vision revealed a future full of paradoxes. Freedom without direction, truth without mystery, light without contrast. How to navigate an ocean of revelations without losing one's way. The answer he brought still echoes today. Only souls that have cultivated inner wisdom will know how to discern the essential from the illusory. We are living in the very time Jung predicted. The veil is growing thinner by the day. The question that remains is not whether his vision was true, but whether we are ready to live in this new world unveiling before us, where the invisible becomes visible and the impossible ordinary. The man who returned, but was never the same. The return was more painful than the departure. When Jung re-entered his body on the hospital bed, he brought with him a cosmic longing, as if he had been torn from his true home to return to a foreign place. The hospital sounds, the antiseptic smell, the physical pain. Everything felt too crude after the harmony of the Temple of Light. But there was a mission. The voice that said, "Not yet," echoed in his mind like a distant bell. He understood. His work was unfinished. The experience was not a gift meant only for him, but a seed that had to be planted in the arid soil of the material world. His task now was to translate the untranslatable. In the years that followed, Jung dove into his studies with renewed purpose. Alchemy, mandalas, ancient myths, everything took on new meaning. He discovered that the great mysteries had always been here, encoded in symbols and rituals, waiting for eyes that knew how to see. His work became a bridge between the visible and the invisible. The most curious thing, he was never afraid of death again. The anxiety common to all human beings was transformed into quiet anticipation. But with that knowledge came a peculiar loneliness. How to live among people who fear what he knew was merely a passage? Jung became a messenger between two worlds. His genius lay not only in what he wrote, but in what he left between the lines. Clues for those who were ready. When he closed his eyes for the last time in 1961, he departed with the certainty that he was merely going home, and this time, to stay. The revelation that belongs to you. This is not just Jung's story, it's a mirror reflecting your own journey. The final words of the letter weren't written for scholars or academics, but for you, in this exact moment when your heart whispers that there is something more. That chill down your spine, that unshakable curiosity. It's no accident. It's a calling. The true purpose of the message isn't in what Jung saw, but in what it awakens within those who receive it. When he wrote about the space between worlds, he wasn't just describing his experience. He was drawing a map for all who feel that ordinary reality is too narrow to contain the whole truth. The crucial question isn't whether you believe in Jung's vision, but whether you are willing to face your own inner boundaries. We each have our own temple of light, an inner place where the essential is revealed. The difference lies in who dares to enter and who prefers to stay. Outside, Jung didn't want followers. He wanted awakeners. People brave enough to question not only the nature of death, but the meaning of the life they are living now. Because in the end, as he himself discovered, the two are faces of the same coin. This letter survived decades of silence to reach you, not by chance, but because the time has come for these truths to be heard. The question is not about Jung or his legacy. It's about what you will do with this knowledge now that it's in your hands. The true meaning has always been where we least expect it. Within. The echo that never fades. The real power of Jung's letter is not in the paper it was written on, but in the silence it creates after being read. That suspended moment between breaths, when the ordinary world seems to fade for a second, revealing the outlines of a greater reality. That is his legacy. Not answers, but questions that continue to reverberate. For 80 years, these words waited in secret, like a seed beneath frozen soil. Now, in our age of collective awakening, they sprout with renewed force. Jung knew that spiritual truths have their own timing. They cannot be rushed, but they also cannot be stopped once their moment arrives. What makes this message so vital today? It speaks directly to our thirst for meaning in a world that has traded depth for speed. While humanity runs in circles, the letter remains as a beacon, reminding us that the essential questions have never changed. We've only become distracted from them. His greatest gift wasn't the description of the beyond, but the proof that our consciousness is capable of transcendence. This ability does not belong to Jung alone. It lies dormant in each of us, like a spark waiting for the right wind to become a flame. The letter completes its cycle now, in your hands. But this is not the end. It is a new beginning. As Jung discovered, some truths cannot be contained in words, only experienced. The invitation remains open, to dive beneath the surface of existence and discover for yourself what awaits on the other side of the veil. The journey, as always, is personal.